Joining me now to talk about the rise of stupidity in today's culture and what he says is the perfect antidote is the president of the Catholic League and author of the brand new book, Sense Catholicism, How to Resolve Our Cultural Crisis. Dr. Bill Donohue joins me live in studio.
Thank
Bill,
you so much, Raymond. Thank you.
Tell me about this book. You say we have a crisis, and the extremely affluent and well-educated is really causing this crisis. You write this: stupidity is not a lack of knowledge. For example, if someone doesn't know how to hard-boil an egg, he's not stupid. He simply hasn't learned how to do it. Stupidity is many things, but most of all, it is a lack of common sense, as in sound judgment. How did we as a culture get so stupid?
Well, it's amazing. You know, the idea of intellectuals, a lot of them not having common sense, this is known by people way before Bill Donohue. Thomas Jefferson understood it. Orwell understood it. Chesterton understood it. Bill Buckley and many others. But I've taught every grade from the second grade through newly minted PhDs from around the world at NYU. Now, there's a lot of great intellectuals, don't get me wrong, but many of them, particularly in the social sciences and humanities, are positively dysfunctional. And the ideas that they have, they live in a world of fiction and delusion. They believe, for example, that a man can become a woman can become a man just by willing it. They believe that a woman who's pregnant is not carrying a baby. That's not the real world. They come up with the stupidest ideas I've ever seen, and they don't believe in human nature. That's where it comes from. If you reject human nature, if you think everything is a social construct, and of course you reject nature's God because you're too smart to believe in God, then you're going to get everything wrong. That's where it begins. By the rejection of human nature and the rejection of God leads you to this world of fiction, which they entertain wildly in the academy.
You spend a lot of time and a lot of firepower in this book on the academy. Yeah. Why?
Because having spent so many years in education, 20 years in education before I took this job, and then continuing to educate as well at NYU, I've never met people who are so wildly out of touch as the intellectuals and the people whom they affect. For example, all the leading feminists in this country and in Europe, every one of them, well, practically almost every one of them wound up in the asylum. People don't know this. These people had all kinds of problems themselves. And if you find out what's going on in the universities, so many of the people who are advising young people today don't themselves have their act together, so to speak. How they get through the day, I'm not exactly certain. But their ideas, they may not intentionally be pernicious, but because you don't understand common sense, and they've got not a lick of it, the damage that they've done to the norms, the values, public policy, and the law in this country is huge.
I want to get to the remedies you suggest in the book in a moment, but I got to play this for you. This is the president this week at the National Day of Prayer. Here's what he said at the White House. Watch.
As we unite on this day of prayer, we renew our resolve to protect communities of faith and to ensure that all people and all of our people can live and pray and worship in peace. And as God promises in the Bible, those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on the wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. And they will walk and not be faint. And that's something that Mike and I think about all the time. Right, Mike?
Give me your sense on what this administration has done for religious liberty, religious freedom. Compare it to other administrations before it, Republican and Democrat.
I've never seen, look, I know people have problems with the persona of the president, okay? And there are legitimate reasons. He gives you a lot of things to chew on. But if you're asking about policy now, get away from persona. When it comes to religious liberty, for example, in fighting for religious exemptions, which are under assault in this country today, when it comes to marriage, when it comes to the life issue, when it comes to abortion, I don't know of any president in my lifetime who has been stronger. Reagan was great. The Bushes were good, but Trump has gone beyond them all. Now, people might say, well, I don't know how sincere he is. I don't have a sincerity measure, okay? I don't know that. All I know is what he delivers. And what he delivers in terms of fighting for religious exemptions and religious liberty, I've never seen a man like it. He's a breath of fresh air at the top level.
What do you make? We're seeing something in this emerging Democratic field of the 2020 contenders. The rise of the religious left Mayor Pete Buttigieg saying, look, I'm a religious person, I'm a moral person, I have this lifestyle, my lifestyle choice, but that doesn't make me less of a religious person. Is there a religious left out there? Is there an audience for this?
Yeah, there's about 10 or 12. Listen, the religious left, they're almost indistinguishable from the secular left. In other words, when it comes to their socialist vision, they're the same. But what is the difference between the religious left? They're all pro-abortion. We know that. What about when it comes to marriage? They're in favor of gay marriage and the like. Transgender, I mean, there's no difference for them whatsoever. So what Buttigieg is trying to do is to say, I'm like Obama. I've got the rhetoric of religion. I'm good on God talk, but people aren't stupid. Mormons, Muslims, traditional Catholics, evangelical Protestants, Orthodox Jews, they want to know where you are on sexuality and marriage and on life. He's indistinguishable with the religious left from the secular left. Good luck to him.
I want to talk about this Pew study. 58% of Americans say they believe religion is less important today in society. We're seeing the explosion of the nones, people who don't identify with any religion. In fact, they now outnumber Catholics. What's happening? Is America less religious than it was?
It is less religious, and how could it not be? Getting back to the wizards, the great geniuses, the intellectuals in the academy, they've secularized our society. What are they taught in the schools? Everything is about relativism. There's no such thing as truth. You know who believed that? You know who said that there's no such thing as truth? It wasn't just the great philosophers of the postmodernists and Foucault and the like. It was Adolf Hitler. Those were his exact words. So if you don't believe there's truth, what you're down to is mere opinion. The Catholic Church, however, is rich with traditions and teachings based in Scripture, and we've got the answer to this secular madness which has colored our society.
You frame in the book Common Sense Catholicism, you look to the aspirations of the French Revolution.
Right.
Liberty and equality and fraternity, and you kind of hang your arguments there, and how Catholicism are the true guardians of those aspirations. Where did the revolution get it wrong, and where do we still get it wrong today?
It all comes down to what I said before. Common sense. Is there such a thing as human nature? Once you deny there is, look, I detail what Donald Brown, the anthropologist, has said, over 300 human universals, over 300 human characteristics which are found in every society in the history of the world. For example, motherhood. Why is it that the woman, the mother, is closer to the child than the father? She gives birth. Yet it's taught at Smith College. The president of Smith College in 2019 says that motherhood is a cultural invention. No, that's a fiction, people. Motherhood is, the culture follows nature. And they don't want to see, once you believe that no such thing as nature, you can't make my argument. Society and the Catholic Church take their cues from nature. We have a responsible idea of freedom. Freedom is the right to do what you ought to do. It's about somebody else. It's about responsibilities. The culture teaches license. We teach that not every inequality is a manifestation of an inequity. Okay? When the guy wins the gold medal in the Olympics, you don't give the gold medal to the guy who came in last, right? You give it to the guy who came in first. That would be fairness. And we respect tradition. We don't want to denigrate Western civilization, which was built by the Catholic Church, all the great things. That's what's doing in the academy today. In higher education, they trash Western civilization with multiculturalism. That's not an answer to anything.
I want to share with you something, and I know you've written about this. Governor Doug Ducey in Arizona wrote a very innocuous Facebook Easter greeting and saying, Happy Easter to everybody. He was attacked. He refuses to apologize or withdraw it. What is happening where something like that, just a civil expression of celebration for a religious holiday, that becomes a cause de célèbre and a point of friction in the culture? What's happened?
Well, what's happened is that we've gone from a culture where some people were indifferent to religion to a culture where a lot of people hate religion. They're militant secularists. Paul Kurtz was a good friend of Sidney Hook, whom I studied under at NYU, and he was a secularist. He was an atheist. Before he died, he said, I want nothing to do with these people, these new atheists. They're all angry. They're all haters. And what you're doing to Catholics and to priests is simply wrong. They threw him out of the organization that he actually founded. That's how mad this whole situation has become. And again, the intellectuals, they're violating the sin of pride in the Catholic Church because they know better than everybody. They know better than God. Sure
I want to put up a full screen, something you write. you write in the book, we need to rely more on wisdom than on knowledge, and more on experience than on ideology. Not to do so is to ensure the triumph of stupidity, yielding outcomes that even intellectuals abhor.
Yes, right. Give me Aristotle, not Plato. Give me somebody who's a realist who understands wisdom over knowledge. And you know, if you have an ailment and you go to a doctor and he makes the wrong diagnosis, he can really screw you up. And then if he doubles down and he tries to figure, I got a new remedy, he's going to destroy you. We do this with the culture. The same people have the same lousy ideas who have screwed up everything. Why do we have such high STD rates today, but we didn't have them in the 50s? Because people don't practice a modicum of restraint. I mean, common sense would tell you, use the brakes that God gave you. And when it comes to money and sex and smoking and drinking and gambling and every kind of expression, if you let it go to extremes, you're going to destroy the individual. People with common sense understand that. The guy who teaches in the humanities and the social sciences, he hasn't got a clue.
I want to change gears just a little bit, but it's very similar to something you just mentioned. You talked about a doctor diagnosing a problem. Pope Benedict recently wrote a letter diagnosing this sex abuse crisis. He, too, was pilloried for it. Your take on what he had to say?
He was brilliant. What he was saying is this. He wasn't exculpating anybody who made a mistake as a bishop or a priest. What he's saying is this. The sexual revolution, first it manifested itself in the society at large, and then it made its way into the church itself. I'm a sociologist. You look at the social context. You can't say that we didn't have a sexual revolution within the church. It was in the seminaries in the 70s. It was
in the world, yeah.
In particular. Well, what he was saying is this is where it comes from. And he wasn't afraid to talk about homosexuality. You know, we have such dishonesty in Catholic quarters in particular. I'm not here to beat up on homosexuals, but I'm not here to lie. And that is to say that I'm not going to pretend that we don't have a real problem, or at least we did in a big way, with homosexuals acting out. Why, for example, in 2002, have we had very few incidences of sexual abuse in this country? Because finally, the Catholic Church, instead of giving the green light to homosexuals acting out, they put up a big red light and a stop sign and said, stop. All of a sudden, they stopped, didn't they? Very few problems. That means they could have used the brakes that God gave them. But guess what? The word got out. The party's over, fellas. Grow up.
What do you make of the renewed attention now, lifting of statute of limitations in certain dioceses? We're seeing it in your own diocese of New York and around the country. A good idea? Some say this is justice, Bill.
It's madness because I've seen what happened in Illinois and New York and Sacramento just recently. These guys are either dead or out of ministry. So if you want to do something about it, the problem, do about it today and what's going on.
Right
Go
now.
ahead at the Catholic Church. You won't find a whole lot there. This is a race to the bottom. They're trying to deal with the people back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. They're mostly dead. And if you want to open up the door for us, then please do it with other religions in the public school. We know the problem is largely behind us in this country today. So I'm not in favor of wasting people's money. They did it in Pennsylvania. What did they get out of it? 2 people that they were able to find. In Illinois, just recently, they named 395 abusive priests going back about 50, 60, 70 years. Guess how many they're still around? 1. I mean, what are they searching for? This is all politically driven, and it's driven by religious profiling. It's discrimination against Catholics.
Okay, let's talk about the reception this movie received in the New York Times. Put your cultural hat on. Hail Satan. This is a documentary, and in it, Satan and those who follow him are portrayed as open-minded, First Amendment lovers.
Well, Variety said that Satan was a free thinker, so I guess the case is closed.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I'm too stupid to figure that out. Variety's a lot smarter than Bill Donohue. They figured that he's a free thinker. But look,
I've never met him, but I'll ask him
I never
when
met
he
him
shows
either.
up.
But you know, this kind of madness, they're applauding them because they use their pitchforks as in Arizona to pick up litter along the highways, and they said they give people socks. I want to know, why do they stop with the socks? Don't these people need shoes? All right? I mean, this is kind of madness. I engaged them, by the way. I said, why are you so pro-abortion at the Satanic Temple? They said, well, it's personal freedom. I said, well, a right of a woman to abort her child, what does that do to the right of that child to be born? They said, well, it's not a baby. I said, so what is it? Well, they never got back at me. Maybe it's a seal. I don't know.
Bill, I know why they only give socks. Because the hooves don't fit into shoes, Bill. You can only put socks on. Okay, we got to talk about Bill Nye, the science guy, who may have a different title by the time this is over. And it relates to what you're talking about in Common Sense Catholicism. He believed, and he says this in a recent documentary, that parents who have too many children, because of the strain and the drain to natural resources, should be penalized, charged for the extra children they have.
Yeah, well, this is totalitarian. There's no other word for it in the English language, okay? We saw that in this country with Margaret Sanger wanting to get rid of black people. The Planned Parenthood founder, people should know that. And we've seen it, of course, in Nazi Germany. The Germans today have the best laws on eugenics. They're not going to allow for what happened once before. They wouldn't put up with a guy like Nye. And if he thinks we have too many people in our world today, then maybe he should take some of his own medicine. Why is he still telling us about this?
Yeah, the older folks use up most of the resources anyway, so maybe, he could offer himself for the common good. Tell me what you want people to come away thinking. How do you want to alter their thinking after they read this book? And why did you labor over it? I mean, this is a book you wrote in the midst of all your other work, which is not an easy thing, given what you do every day.
I think everybody on all sides know we have a cultural crisis. I'm basically arguing that this country was founded on the Judeo-Christian ethos for a couple hundred years. People didn't always have to agree with it. But once that became ripped up by people in the academy, at the higher intellectuals, and they're challenging us with this militant secularism, we have a divide in the country between one side and the other. The Catholic Church's teachings, I'm not saying all the teachers, the Catholic Church's teachings are a repository of wisdom. Go back and read what the Church says and read the Ten Commandments and then try to follow it in our laws, our public policy, and our norms and values. And don't listen to the crackpots in the university. There's more common sense and more free speech allowed in a local pub in the United States today than there is on the local college campus.
Bill Donohue, thank you so much for being here. The book is Common Sense Catholicism, How to Resolve Our Cultural Crisis by Dr. Bill Donohue. It's available at bookstores everywhere and online, including the EWTN Religious Catalog. They're at EWTNRC.com.